Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, we've got a trainer who has maxed out a Shadow HUNDO Swanna all the way up to level 50, and they're taking it to the Ultra League to try and cause some chaos. Now, these battles were submitted to the channel by a member of the community, Dr. Stalemate, so many thanks for the battle submission. Now, Shadow Swanna has been one of my favorite updates this season. It's been an incredibly fun Pokemon to use in the Great League, and it was pretty fun in the NAIC meta as well. But the Ultra League, this is a whole new ballgame. Shadow Swanna does not get to 2500 at level 50, so I'm very excited to see if it can actually hold its own. So, without further ado, let's hop into the matches. We've got a Ghost-type battle in the first match, leading Jellicent into Drifblim. Jellicent gonna look to overfarm, watching for a catch, but the opponent doesn't go for it and instead just stays in and successfully baits with the Icy Wind. Jellicent now gonna be at -1, but Shadow Ball will still do big damage onto the Drifblim. Drifblim will match shields. Jellicent will be able to outpace here. Jellicent ends up waiting the turn and firing off the Shadow Ball, and this Shadow Ball is going to be double shielded by the opponent. Aggressive pivot out, in comes Guzzlord, instant Icy Wind, as Drifblim will be able to apply big super effective damage and a -1 attack drop. Opponent now sends out a Shadow Conkeldurr. Look at the spice. Guzzlord barely able to survive the Force Bombs, as it's able to make the last second Dragon Claw, and even at -1, that Dragon Claw did quite a lot of damage. In comes Jellicent, instant Brutal Swing comes out from the Shadow Conkeldurr, but no, they're running Dynamic Punch and Stone Edge. Looks like Jellicent may get farmed down. In comes the Swanna, and Swanna's able to snipe down with the Shadow Gust. Opponent brings back in the Drifblim. Drifblim is going to barely outpace the Swanna, and even though this is pretty much guaranteed to be an Icy Wind, Swanna's going to have to put up a Protect Shield. In the back, opponent has Seismitoad, and this is a very big problem for the opponent. A Seismitoad, it can't knock out with the Icy Wind, and it is no fast attack pressure here. Seismitoad ends up throwing on alignment, maybe thinking Swanna was at the back-to-back, but it did not have energy. Icy Wind lands, now Swanna able to farm up a ton of energy, tries for the catch, unable to get it, but Swanna is going to be winning charge attack priority. Camera did go a little bit weird there on that CMP tie. Aqua Jet will take the knockout. Back in comes the Drifblim, and Swanna is able to hang on. Swanna reset the Icy Wind drop from earlier. At full power, Aqua Jet knocks out the Drifblim, and that's a good game. Hopping into game number 2, leading Jellicent into Florges. Even if the Florges is on Trailblaze, in the Ultra League, Jellicent is actually pretty fine here. Now, typically, Florges will like to just fire off the back-to-back Trailblazes, no shield the first Shadow Ball, shield the second, and then just end up farming down. But as Jellicent, having an ability to win the zeros against the mon that hits you for super effective is actually quite nice. There's the first Trailblaze from the Florges, immediately followed by Trailblaze number 2, but this is simply just not going to do enough damage, so Jellicent will be able to no-shield. Jellicent now going to go for the Surf, opting for the slightly cheaper charge stack, should still deliver a knockout, but a shield comes out from the Florges, aggressive pivot into the Swanna. Swanna getting up energy. Does Florges go for the Chilling Water bait? No, it's going to be the full send on the Trailblaze. In comes Corviknight. Now, this is a little bit of an awkward matchup. The fast attacks are going to be heavily resisted here. Sand attack double resisted, Gust single resisted, but for Swanna, these Aqua Jets do add up quite considerably. Corviknight gonna fire off energy, no shield from the Swanna, just gonna be the Air Cutter. Will they get the boost? It did look like they got the boost, and that is going to force Swanna to put up the shield, as Air Cutter would have done a lot more damage. They get another boost. That is really not ideal. Swanna should be able to win charge attack priority on the next move, but I don't know if the Shadow Aqua Jet will take the KO. Dr. Stalemate not taking any chances, able to save that Aqua Jet and get the catch onto the Jellicent. Will Corviknight go 3 for 3 on boost? No, it finally does not get the boost. The energy has been preserved on that Shadow Swanna for later, and once the timer hits 0, it's actually going to be Guzzlord hitting the field. Aggressive pivot from the opponent. They bring in the Florges, but Florges is not going to get there. Florges race into the move, but before they can land even a single charge attack, Brutal Swing will take the KO. In the back is Virizion. Swanna has energy. Swanna switches in, but didn't go for the fly. Went for the Gust. Virizion fires up the Leaf Blade. That KOs the Swanna. And unfortunately, this game will end in heartbreak. So close to Swanna getting the one-shot onto the Virizion. It looked like the switch in did happen. Tried to click the fly, but clicked it slightly too late, and that triggered the Gust. And now, unfortunately, this game will end in defeat. We've all had games like that. That is so tragic. So close to Swanna stealing the show, but unfortunately Virizion lands the Leaf Blade and takes the win. We move to the next match. Pretty neutral lead, Jellicent into the Stunfisk. Stunfisk gonna fire off Discharge on 7, instant no shield from the Jellicent, and Jellicent will look to hit back hard with the Surf. Now, Discharge does not two-shot in the Ultra League, but Surf should actually two-shot the Stunfisk, meaning that Jellicent is going to be able to win the zeros. Well, it's going to be very, very close. Stunfisk may barely hang on here, but if it does, it's not going to be by much. Discharge is going to land. Jellicent fires off another Surf. No catch comes through from the opponent. Are they willing to invest the Protect Shield? They are not. Surf is going to land. They're barely able to hang on. In comes Toucanon, and after banking some energy on Jellicent, Toucanon is going to be answered with the Guzzlord. No shield from the Guzzlord. This is not the Shadow Toucanon. Big Blast connects, and that damage is devastating. It turns out that was actually a charge stack priority tie. This is a -1 Brutal Swing. Toucanon is able to hang on, but Guzzlord will be able to outpace here by a turn. So Guzzlord able to make it to Brutal Swing number 2. Toucanon forced to put up the shield. I don't think Toucanon can get the farm down here. If they try for it, they're not going to get it. They realize it, and they're forced to pivot out and catch the Brutal Swing onto the Stunfisk. Stunfisk will get knocked out. The Toucanon does have a lot of energy. In comes Toucanon. Quick switch into the Shadow Swanna. Swanna puts up the shield. Will Toucanon go for the Beak Blast? No, they go for the Drill Peck. They're going to get gusted down. What's in the back? It's Annihilate, as Swanna is absolutely popping off. Opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match. We move to the next match, leading Jellicent into Shadow Voltage Fortress. This matchup, honestly, not too bad, but that is a massive game error right there. The Jellicent should outpace by 1 turn there. It's 15 turns versus 16, but somehow it was a charge stack priority tie. I've been having this happen in my games as well, where I very frequently start games down a turn, and it is incredibly frustrating. I want them to try and get this game state as consistent as possible, because I think having an ability to better fix errors when they appear and have damage registration error be consistent, as opposed to sometimes happening, sometimes not, is really nice. But at the same time, you have to ensure that the base game is stable, and it seems like that's something they're really struggling with. My first few days on the new system honestly felt really great, but I feel like the more I play it, the more issues that I'm having, which is obviously the opposite. You would hope that the more you play it, then the better the system ends up working. So I guess we'll see. It's early days in the new system, but man, the fact that people can start down a turn, it just puts you at such a competitive disadvantage, so I really hope that's something that gets addressed soon. In the meantime, being a Guzzlord in a Licky Licky matchup when you're debuffed, not the greatest, but that catch might be the greatest. Able to save a ton of energy and catch Body Slam onto the Jellicent. Back in comes Fortress. I think Fortress could have gotten the farm down there, but Fortress fires off the Sand Tomb, not wanting to take any chances. Guzzlord gonna fire off the Brutal Swing. This Brutal Swing should be enough to KO the Shadow Fortress, as Fortress has lost a lot of its health bar, but Fortress will put up the shield. Instant Brutal Swing comes out from the Guzzlord. Opponent may have misremembered where Guzzlord's energy is at, and now they've lost their shield, and they still lost the Fortress. Back in comes the Licky Licky aggressive pivot into the Swanna. In the back is going to be Jellicent. Jellicent is down too much energy. Shadow Swanna should be able to close out this game. Fly connects, big damage onto the Jellicent. Jellicent gonna try and play it out, but they are just in so much trouble. Swanna puts up the shield, even with the Surf Bait. It's just too little, too late. Swanna with a massive overfarm, firing off the Aqua Jet. This will easily be KOing that Jellicent, and then all they have left is a very low health Licky Licky. In comes Licky Licky, and there's the catch. Absolute savage gameplay from Dr. Stalemate, catching the Shadow Ball. Swanna gets the gust down, and that's gonna be a good game. We move to the next match as Jellicent leads into Credilli. Despite the type disadvantage, this is actually a pretty fine matchup for Jellicent in the Ultra League. And that's because Jellicent is just going to be able to outpace the Credilli to the second charge stack. Credilli opts for Grass Knot, that hits for some pretty monster damage, but Jellicent will be able to reach the double Shadow Ball before Credilli's able to make its second Grass Knot. First Shadow Ball is going to connect. Jellicent actually ends up pivoting out, saving the energy, and getting a catch of what should be a Grass Knot onto the Guzzlord, but it's not. Opponent went for the Rock Doom. So now the Guzzlord is debuffed. In comes a Shadow Shiny Gyarados. That is an incredible flex. Gyarados might have Twister, and they do. Guzzlord falls, and now this is going to be a bit of a tricky game. There's not a lot of health remaining on this team. The Guzzlord is gone, the Jellicent is very low, and Shadow Gyarados is putting up shields. If this game is going to be won, it's going to be on the back of Shadow Swanna, but Shadow Swanna is going to have some very heavy lifting. Jellicent forced to burn the first shield, immediately fires back with the Shadow Ball. Is the opponent willing to double shield? No, they are not. In comes Swanna. In the back is going to be a Mudshot Flygon. Now, that is not what I was expecting to see in the back, but that's a very welcome sight for the Shadow Swanna. Swanna just going to keep farming. They're going to fire off energy. Twister will hit for quite a lot of damage, but importantly, will not take the knockout. Swanna will be able to hold on here. Opponent may be unfamiliar with the Swanna counts, tries to CMB tie, but Swanna is 3-3. It's not 3-2. Now Swanna is just going to get the full farm down, exit with a ton of energy, and the opponent really doesn't have good options here. They bring in the Gyarados. Gyarados gets farmed down. Back in comes the Credilli, but the fly is loaded. This is probably going to be taking the knockout. Credilli survives on 1 HP. Oh, actually stops tapping there. Love the BM, letting the Swanna get farmed down just to hex down with the Jellicent and get the win. We move to the next match. Jellicent leading into Florges. This is a very familiar lead matchup. Even if they have Trailblaze, this is going to be a very good spot to be in as the Jellicent opponent tries for a Shadow Ball catch as they send in Oinkologne. Now, Oinkologne was a Pokemon that I honestly feel underperformed a little bit in the NAIC meta, but I don't honestly think it was Oinkologne's fault. Because between when Oinkologne had the Calm Day and the NAIC meta, there was a move update. And then people ended up preferring other normal types like Kecleon and Miltank. Now, in this neutral matchup in the Ultra League, it's putting up a pretty okay fight, but unfortunately, because it's going up against the Mon with the Trailblaze resist, it's not able to boost up its Mud Slaps. And Mud Slap not doing a ton of damage, and Oinkologne will get KO'd. Back in comes the Florges, immediate pivot back into the Jellicent, and Jellicent is absolutely loaded. Surf is going to get the shield. Florges throws on alignment, maybe thinking that the Jellicent was doubled up, but Jellicent was still 1 hex away. Florges opts for a Chilling Water, and they're going to pivot out and send in Seismitoad. But Seismitoad is going to have a pretty rough matchup here, so if the opponent's throwing Chilling Water and then leaving, maybe they're not running Trailblaze. Jellicent's going to farm up. Opponent tries to go for the CMP tie, but the opponent's letting through a lot of free hexes. They go for the Icy Wind. That's going to be debuffing the Jellicent, but now Jellicent gets to reset the debuff, send into Swanna, and the opponent's going to resign the match. He moves to the next match, picking up a pretty decent lead, Jellicent into Corviknight. While 1 Payback is not going to be taking the knockout here onto the Jellicent, Jellicent's 2 Shadow Balls are not going to KO either. The bulk of Ultra League Corviknight is absolutely unreal. Corviknight overfarms massively and is going to fire off the Payback on very nice charge stack timing. Jellicent going to be no shielding. Payback does do quite a lot of damage. Jellicent goes for a second Shadow Ball, and the opponent makes a devastating catch onto Licky Licky. That is so unfortunate. Now out comes Guzzlord, and Guzzlord will appreciate having Dragon Claw in this matchup. Dragon Claw is just a significantly more efficient move than Brutal Swing, so as Licky Licky chips away with Body Slam after Body Slam, being able to land a Dragon Claw will give Guzzlord a pretty nice advantage here. Dragon Claw connects. Now Guzzlord definitely can knock out with the next Dragon Claw. With enough Dragon Tails, may even be able to farm it into Brutal Swing range. Body Slam is going to land. Guzzlord going to look to farm up. Fire off the Brutal Swing. This is going to be close, but I think Licky Licky will hold on here. Brutal Swing lands. Licky Licky is going to survive, and that means 1 more Body Slam is guaranteed to land. Guzzlord can survive it, but Guzzlord is now getting pretty low. Aggressive pivot into the Shadow Swanna, able to snipe down with a Gust. Will the opponent bring back in the Corviknight? Corviknight does have a decent amount of stored energy. They are going to bring in the Corviknight, so we still don't yet know what they have in the back. Swanna firing off the Aqua Jet. This will come pretty close to taking the knockout. I think Corviknight may be able to hold on, but Corviknight's not going to risk it, and Corviknight actually went for the CMP tie. Tough call to make. Swanna no shields. That's the Payback, and that is going to hurt. Swanna now in quite a lot of trouble. Opponent ends up mistiming their Air Cutter, and I believe that lets an entire free Gust through. Opponent did get the boost on the Air Cutter, but it felt like Sand Attack is going to be hitting for any extra damage. Aqua Jet will be taking the knockout. What do they have in the back? They have a Dondozo, and this game should be over. Shadow Swanna able to make the fly. This will do big damage onto Dondozo. Dondozo ends up no shielding, and in comes Guzzlord. Dondozo cannot get the farm down here. Guzzlord will survive too many waterfalls, so they're forced to throw energy. Dondozo keeps farming, and they play to a CMP tie that they do not win. The opponent miscounts, and that's going to cost them dearly. Brutal Swing connects, putting Dondozo deep into the red HP. And from here, there's a pretty clear path to victory. Just send it to Jellicent and go for the full Hex farm down. Dondozo never waterfalling down, and that game is over. Hopping into the final match, leading Jellicent into Swampert. This should basically just be a GG's on the spot. This entire team beats Swampert. So as they save switch Corviknight and it's answered with the Shadow Swanna, switch advantage doesn't really matter because it's not like there's any good matchups for Swampert to target into this team. Swanna's going to overfarm, fire off the Aqua Jet. Did the opponent actually play to a CMP tie there? Aqua Jet is going to land. It was a CMP tie, so a bit of an interesting play there from the opponent. A very risky play. They almost gave an entire free Gust. Swanna able to make Aqua Jet number 2. Was that another CMP tie? I didn't see the Sand Attack sneak. Aqua Jet will be shielded. It was another CMP tie. The first Air Cutter also boosted. It feels like Corviknight has been boosting left and right in these battles, and they boost yet again. Back in comes the Jellicent. Jellicent will be able to outpace. Shadow Ball is going to guarantee a knockout onto the Corviknight. Corviknight will not put up a Protect Shield, and they will get KO'd. In the back is Ludicolo. Immediate pivot into the Guzzlord. In the Ultra League, Ludicolo does typically run Ice Beam. Ice Beam would be a very big problem for the Guzzlord, so I think Guzzlord should always be shielded the first tier, because Ice Beam could potentially flip the game back to the opponent. Shield comes out, there's the Ice Beam right on cue, big shield, and the opponent pivots into Swampert, but they're just in so much trouble. Jellicent has a dominant matchup into the Swampert, Guzzlord does as well. Switch Timer comes up at the perfect moment, and Jellicent hits the field. Even if Swampert has Earthquake, Earthquake plus Hydro should not take the knockout. They do actually have Earthquake, but Jellicent is still in such a commanding position. Swampert fires off Hydro Cannon. This will not be enough to secure the knockout. Switch Timer will be coming up very soon. So Jellicent is just going to be firing off the Shadow Ball. This covers for the catch. Opponent puts up the shield. There's the switch in, and Ludicolo is going to get the Astonish down. Ludicolo does exit with quite a lot of energy. Guzzlord is going to make the Dragon Claw on the CMP tie. Guzzlord should still be outside of Swampert Earthquake range. Ludicolo ended up going for an Energy Ball there, so they weren't able to go for the bait. Guzzlord going to go for an Undercharge. The Undercharge on the Dragon Claw is a nice one, able to get the full farm down. Wait, I just realized that means the Ludicolo was not on Weather Ball Water. They were Ice Beam Energy Ball. That is a crazy moveset. Dragon Claw KOs the Swampert, and that is a good game. All in all, these were some very fun battles, so many thanks to Dr. Stalemate for sending them in. I did mention this in the intro, but HUNDO Swanna has been one of my favorite updates this season. Gust is so incredibly oppressive, and with Aqua Jet and Fly, it has pretty nice pacing, and it took a Pokemon from complete obscurity into a Pokemon that actually has some pretty solid anti-meta play. Now, one thing that is a little bit tragic about HUNDO Swanna is the fact that it runs a 4-turn fast move, which is Gust, and longer turn duration fast moves are substantially worse on the new system. This is because the new system has changed how damage registers. Now, the so-called damage registration error of the past is actually now the norm. So damage basically registers 1 turn later on the new system than it used to on the old system. So like Incinerate, instead of registering on turn 4, now registers on turn 5. This means, for example, you're able to get some charge attacks against longer turn duration fast moves that you wouldn't have been able to get in the past. So it does mean that for Pokemon like Swanna, trying to farm something down actually does become quite a bit more difficult due to the fact that shorter turn duration moves can actually reach more charge attacks, whereas previously that damage would register a little bit sooner. So, unfortunate that Swanna does take a bit of a nerf in the new system, but I'm happy to see that even on the new system, Dr. Stalemate is able to break out some Ultra League spice and still get some wins with it. It goes without saying, Swanna in the Ultra League, definitely a Pokemon for fun, not a Pokemon for climbing, but if you end up getting lucky enough to get a Shadow Hundo, I think it's legally required that you have to build it and try it in the Go Battle League, so massive respect to Dr. Stalemate for maxing out the Swanna and having some fun with it along the way. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed watching HUNDO Swanna attempt to terrorize some Ultra League fighting types, be sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And an extra special thank you, as always, to our channel members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide to the channel is absolutely incredible. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.